Hey everyone, and welcome to the Sunny Go One Piece podcast. On this episode, we're going to be diving into episodes 441 through 443, which will cover manga chapters 539 through 541. And I apologize if my voice is a little soft and weak. I've been going to a lot of Mariners games over the last couple days, leading into their possible playoff run. We'll see. Anyways, as we wrap up Act 2 of the Impel Down arc, we now ramp up to the insanity that is the third arc of this incredible story. Alright, so synopsis. Luffy is back, and now it's a race to get down to level 6 to save Ace before he gets taken away, but Luffy is going to need a lot of help in order to accomplish that, and he gets it from very unlikely places. Alright, so differences. So there are actually quite a few differences because it seems like one of the themes with Impelled Down is that Toei is basically trying to insert as many random scenes and extend as much as possible because they can't really throw in any fillers here. And so you get scenes like a lot of the Buggy and Gaudino stuff in all three of these episodes is filler, like them running around in level 4, avoiding the Denden Mushis. There's also some more scenes of them added later once they get to level 3, trying to get away from the Sphinx again, as well as when they get back to level 2, they're surrounded by the Manticores just farting in their faces. There's several scenes of them just kind of inserted, and none of that is actually in the manga. There's also a couple extra scenes that are added of the trio of Ivankov, Luffy, and Inazuma running down the spiral stairs. There's also Ivankov. This is a really weird change that they added for the anime. So in the anime, Ivankov turns the guard into a woman, and that's actually added in the anime. In the manga, the way this scene plays out is that Ivankov just kind of beats up the male guard and has them tell them where the Ace's cell is. And I'm honestly not sure why this was changed. It almost feels like Oda asked for this change in the anime, it seems like. Because I don't know why the story team for the anime would make this kind of change, because it just seems really odd and almost unnecessary. And then there's another moment where Ace tries to break free and go back for Luffy. This moment is actually slightly longer in the anime, as it starts a couple minutes before where the actual manga picks it up. And in the manga, the scene starts off where Ace is already pinned to the ground by Magellan, and you don't actually get to see him like take away the spear and start beating up on some of the guards, and then Magellan steps in and pins him to the ground. There's also another scene where Ivankov takes out the Denden Mushis in level 6, kind of saying this is all they can do right now. So this is another weird change that they made in the anime, where and this almost again seems like something that Oda asked them to input because it's weird, because in the manga he takes out 4 of them. You see him carry 4 of the video Denden Mushis in his arms, whereas in the anime he's only seen to take out 1. It's a really odd change yet again. And then this is where we get I like this change because it actually explains kind of a, not necessarily a continuity issue, but just kind of like a wondering. So you ever wonder, if you just only read the manga, you kind of wonder like, where did Crocodile get his clothes from? Because he's clearly seen in the prison, the black and white striped clothes. And then in the next scene, when they're up above in level 4, I believe, or level 4, he's back in his like somewhat normal clothes. And you're just left wondering, where the hell did he get that? And it's actually explained in an SBS where he got that. He got it from New Land. And in the anime, they added this extra scene where you see the camera just kind of pan across the room, and you see Crocodile putting on his shoes, and it's implied that he got his clothes from New Land. And then finally, at the end, the story kind of shuffles around a bit. We skip a few story beats to end the episode on the reveal of Crocodile and Dasbonas reuniting in level 4. And so yeah, there's like a lot of changes that they made for these episodes. But let's move on to the episodes themselves. So first off, Boncré is a real one. Like, the depth of his loyalty and friendship towards Luffy is something very unique and special. Like, he is without a doubt a Straw Hat in spirit. Even though he hasn't spent all that much time with the crew, nor with Luffy, his devotion to Luffy is something special. Like, he was willing to give up his own life for Luffy on multiple occasions. And I think Bonkei is a beautiful character. And I don't mean in the visual sense, but just his character, his actual soul and his character. Like, this was a person who began as a villain that did terrible things, but changed his ways and atoned for those mistakes by sacrificing himself. And even yet again, he made what he probably thinks was another bad thing by abandoning Luffy, which again, I'll reiterate, I don't think he was out of line at all running in that situation. But he again came back and made up for his mistakes in Luffy's eyes. Although I don't think Luffy even saw that as a betrayal. Yeah, Bonkei is your classic. He's not a bad guy. He's a good person who's made some bad choices, but is now trying to do the right thing. Kind of that whole Zangief moment from Wreck-It Ralph, if you know what I mean. It's a very sweet moment when Ivankov points this out to Luffy, and the gratitude and relief that Luffy has that Bonkei has also been saved. Like, if you haven't already wanted Bonkei to be an official Nakama, then you don't have a heart. Like, come on. Bonkei is so great. Bonkei has pretty much exhausted himself, and while Luffy is cured of the poison, his body is also still very weakened from the grueling hormone treatment that he just went through. Also, randomly, Inazuma is all of a sudden a man again. If you haven't noticed yet, and I don't blame you since it's paid no attention almost, it just sort of happens every time this character appears so far. So in the forest when we first meet him, they were a man, right? And then once back at New Kama Land, they're a woman. And then now they're back to a woman, or they're back to a man again. And it seems Ivankov just constantly helps Inazuma change genders on a whim. And this duality is seen in their design as well and their fashion. And how they have that sort of split look with one half being orange and the other half being white. And I didn't mention this in the last podcast, but their designs, like Ivankov draws inspiration from the Rocky Picture Horror Show with Inazuma's design, being a reference to the dancers from the time warp scene. Now again, like I said, I've never seen this movie, and I really should. So I can't really speak much more to this reference, but that's what his design is kind of referencing. So Inazuma is a very minor but kind of interesting character because it's never really stated why they swap genders so frequently. Not that there needs to be a reason to everything, but what's cool is how this personality trait of being kind of fluid and able to remake themselves over and over fits in very well thematically with his Devil Fruit, or I guess with their Devil Fruit ability. And I'm kind of jumping the gun a little bit because we don't see their Devil Fruit till much later. But we'll go on to see that they've got the Choki Choki no Mi, or the Snip Snip fruit, or in some translations the Sheer Sheer fruit, depending what translation you're going off of. I think Snip Snip is better, as Choki Choki is basically the Japanese onomatopoeia for cutting things, so they're both the equivalent. Or like how in English we say snip snip for when we want to indicate cutting something up with scissors. Anyways, back to why this fits so well with Inazuma's fluid nature is because this Devil Fruit allows them to turn their body parts into scissors and essentially cut anything and everything and reshape it to how they want. And Inazuma can literally reshape reality to whatever they want, which aligns pretty well with how they constantly reshape themselves, you know, in terms of their identity, their look, their sort of personality. And this kind of brings up a thought in my head that I actually haven't really analyzed nor discussed on this podcast very much, mostly because I completely forgot till now to even really recognize to talk about this, but it is something I've thought about a lot throughout the series, is how Oda not only gives his characters cool and unique Devil Fruit powers, but he expertly makes it so that it says something about his characters with them. Like, if you look at many of the Devil Fruits and their characters, they're often tied to the characters' personalities or their overall themes. It's actually very interesting when you dive deeper into them, and it's a very clever and efficient way of storytelling and introducing a character, and you get to kind of dive into them without someone explicitly stating all this stuff about the characters. And maybe one of these days on an episode just solely devoted to this, I'll go through some of my favorite Devil Fruit and character commentary with how they're associated with them. Like a great example is Luffy himself, and I don't know why I've never talked about this, but Luffy's Gomu Gomu no Mi, with rubber, it allows you to stretch, change your shape, and basically be whatever you want. And that ties so well with Luffy's sort of thematic overall philosophy of freedom. Like the Gomu Gomu no Mi allows him to be as free as he wants. And then similarly, sort of that bouncy quality where he basically just bounces back from everything, no matter what hits him. That's again another really interesting character trait that the Gomu no Mi like actually shows up in his character, in that Luffy is incredibly resilient both physically and mentally. Like no matter what happens, he somehow manages to bounce back, as it were, and still maintain a positive outlook and keep pushing forward. And so yeah, there are stuff like that. And when you really look at like some of the other ones, they all have something about them that is really tied to them, especially the characters that are sort of like main characters or main villains. You definitely see a lot of that. So yeah, I might talk about that in a future podcast. But moving on though to the more juicy story developments, when we finally learn more about Ivankov and what they're all about, it makes sense that Ivankov's, like Luffy, is impelled down by choice, and that he is waiting for the right moment to break out. And that purpose is for the Revolutionary Army's cause. And that Ivankov is Dragon's comrade, which honestly caught me by surprise. But at the same time, I wasn't really all that shocked. This scene, though, kills me in the anime because they have the benefit of the acting, but most importantly, I love the musical decisions made here, and it kills me every time. This is so good. So there's this ominous, intense music playing throughout Ivankov's monologue, but then it instantly cuts off when Luffy just casually drops in, "Oh, you mean my dad?" or "Ore no touchan ga?" And instantly the music returns when Ivankov begins talking again, and then says, "Yes, when your dad," and then he makes it all the way to the end of this monologue, and only then does it finally register what Luffy had just revealed to them. And it's so funny. And something that adds an extra bit of fun in this scene in Japanese is that Luffy uses one of the most informal ways to say dad with touchan instead of like otosan, which is what usually you say, or the formal chichiue. I don't think Luffy would ever say that. Or even slightly the more informal way of saying it, like oyaji, while referring to this almost mythically revered figure in the world of One Piece. He uses the almost the equivalent of saying like my daddy, as opposed to like father or even dad, which makes this even funnier when Ivankov repeats it and yells "Touchan!" and then slams into the wall in absolute shock. It's so funny. I love this scene. The music is what really sells it, though. When the music cuts out and then immediately returns, it is the best thing ever. And this whole sequence of Ivankov trying to work it out in their head, putting all the facts together to tell if Luffy is in fact telling the truth, is really entertaining as well, and pretty epic, I gotta say. Once they've made that determination that Luffy is in fact the real deal, I get chills when Ivankov immediately changes their tune and goes all in on helping Luffy save Ace. It's like a complete 180. And seeing this very impactful and powerful character jumping to Luffy's aid almost instantly like that lends itself to quite a major shift in the tone. And the fact that he is one of the Revolutionary Army's commanders adds to the gravity of it all. Like, this is someone who is an equal to Dragon as far as what kind of relationship they have, and that in and of itself really lends a lot of gravitas to this moment. And I also want to take this opportunity, because I don't think I've mentioned this in the past during either of Dragon's last two appearances, is his voice actor. If his voice sounds familiar to you, then you're most likely a pretty big shonen anime fan in general, as he's voiced by Hidekatsu Shibata. And he's probably most famous for playing older, very prolifically powerful characters. And you might recognize him as the third Hokage Sarutobi from Naruto, or King Bradley from both versions of the Full Metal Alchemist, both the original one and Brotherhood. And I can't believe I haven't mentioned this point up until now, because, yeah, his voice is very distinct and really amazing. Anyways, when Ivankov starts to rationalize why the world government would want to execute Ace like this and how it would impact the current situation in the world, you really start to feel the world of One Piece getting even larger than it already is, with this immense geopolitical struggle that is happening outside of the Straw Hats adventure. And there's this massive geopolitical conflict with the Marines, the world government, the Revolutionary Army, the emperors that Oda seemingly gives us a sense of sort of the grand scale of the conflict that's about to happen. And it really is starting to hype this coming summit war quite a bit. And then there's this dramatic joke, which I realize is an oxymoron, but the scene where Luffy faints and Ivankov makes it seem like he's got no pulse by starting the sentence with his pulse and finishes with is there, faking everyone out, reminds me of that one scene in The Office that just absolutely kills me every time, is when Michael hits Meredith with his car and rushes into the office after taking her to the hospital and tells everyone that Meredith was hit and rushed to the hospital. Then he goes on to say the doctors tried to save her and they did their best and she's gonna be all right. And Stanley's yelling at Michael saying, "What is wrong with you? Why did you have to phrase it like that?" It's just the same vibes. I feel like both are insanely funny scenes. In any case, Luffy gets an adrenaline boost from Ivankov to help him get over the fatigue from his injuries and recover. Not to be understated, but Luffy once again gets a new color scheme in his usual clothes, this time with a yellow shirt and red shorts, which I also kind of like. Not as much as the previous one with the teal shirt, but at this point, stealth has gone out the window, and the trio of Luffy, Ivankov, and Inazuma are making a mad dash to Ace, creating this intense race between them and Magellan, who is also on his way to retrieve Ace to hand over to the Marines. Unfortunately, Magellan beats them there. Then we get the fateful meeting between Luffy and Jinbei. Although it was an incredibly brief first meeting, there was just this sense of like gravity about this meeting, just due to how long it's been since we first heard about Jinbei, and the ideas that at least I've and I think most people had in their heads this whole time about what kind of person Jinbei would be and how Luffy would react to the guy that basically unleashed Arlong on East Blue. And I do love that immediately that all Jinbei is concerned about is helping Luffy, and tells him right away that if they go after Ace right now, they might still be able to get to him without any regard for himself. And I love this. Jinbei is quickly turning to be an insanely honorable and good guy that I really like. And I remember I already liked Jinbei a lot, but by this point, you know, even though we've only seen very little of him, I've pretty much like really gotten on board with Jinbei. But things go from bad to worse as they get trapped in level 6 by Hanya Ball. During this, Ace, after it was confirmed that Luffy is in fact there, tries to break free and go back to help him. And even while surrounded and cuffed, amazingly, he still manages to take out like a half a dozen guys. And it just kind of shows you how naturally strong Ace is as well. Back on level 6 with the whole floor filling up with sleeping gas, we get to see Inazuma's aforementioned devil fruit, the Choki fruit, or the Snip Snip fruit, as they cut up the ground and flip the strips up like flaps of fabric or paper, and then they instantly harden back up, blocking the gas, which is a pretty cool ability. And Luffy gives Inazuma one of his trademark nicknames, calling him Kani-chan or Crab-chan, which is, I think, very cute and funny. From here on is where things go from exciting and fun to epic and insane. And that moment where Luffy determines to go to Marineford to save Ace, even with Ivankov laying out how insurmountable the obstacles he has to face down, is quite the moment. And Luffy's quiet determination always gives me chills, especially when Ivankov senses dragon in Luffy, with the music being amazing here. Because up until now, you know, when Luffy is like all in to do something, you know, whether it be sort of that final push in the third act, Luffy's always like very like rah rah, like yeah type of attitude. But it's very sobering to see Luffy have that same energy or same sort of feeling, but at the same time his energy level is completely different with this like incredibly focused and quiet determination. Like he's not angry. He's not amped up. He's not like happy-go-lucky. This is like a completely different Luffy that we haven't really seen too much of, and it's this sort of like quiet and contemplative determination. Like I actually can't think of a moment that this version of Luffy has really showed up. To be quite honest, maybe you could say when he's about to go face Bellamy after what he does to Cricket. But even then, that's still more anger than sort of this quiet determination. Then, following right after that chills-inducing moment, we get one of the most giddy moments that we've all been waiting for as we hear that famous laugh, and there he is, Crocodile in the flesh, back in the main story. And oh my god, I was so freaking excited for this, especially to see what their reunion would be like. I mean Luffy and Crocodile. And the fact that even to this day, I mean, Crocodile is still my favorite villain in all of One Piece. There's just something so damn cool about Crocodile. And the fact that one of the most fearsome villains that we've faced thus far is about to possibly join forces with Luffy wasn't enough to make me so giddy with excitement. Like, when he ends episode 442 with the Hisashiburi da na Mugiwara in that silky smooth voice, like, god damn, it's awesome. And also you realize Crocodile is right with, his ability. He can turn the prison walls and ceiling to dust and nothing would be able to stop him. And so, yeah, he's got a point. And god damn, like, Impel Down is so amazing precisely for moments like this. And right off the bat, Oda immediately addresses the aftermath of Miss Golden Week's cover story, where it seemed like Crocodile was rethinking his life and didn't want to be set free anymore, but his motivation to break out is apparently tied to the fact that he wants to see what this war would be like between the Marines and Whitebeard, because later on we'll find out that he's got some sort of a vendetta and relationship with Whitebeard, and so I'm sure he would love to see Whitebeard get owned by him or whoever. Then we get to the origins to one of the most hotly debated theories out there, with this very interesting exchange between Crocodile and Ivankov. They apparently have history with each other from the past when Crocodile was a young rookie pirate. And we're not told any of the details, but all we really know is that Ivankov has a secret on Crocodile that he really wants to stay a secret that seems to elicit an insane degree of shame on Crocodile's part. And so the theory goes is that given Ivankov's devil fruit power, it's that long ago Crocodile was actually born a woman, and for whatever reason Ivankov changed him into a man, either by request or by some happenstance. And presumably Crocodile doesn't want this to get out because it would tarnish or maybe change his reputation that he's built up as this sort of fearsome warlord pirate. And yeah, this conversation has just been recently reignited to a fever pitch with the Netflix live action, as in the very opening moments of the series during the execution of Roger, the camera seems to linger on a woman that is dressed in a way that's not necessarily exactly what Crocodile was wearing during his manga appearance, but in chapter 0, but just has the overall color scheme and vibe of Crocodile right down to the golden hoop earrings. And there's even this moment in the live action cast where during a Wired interview where Iñaki, the actor who plays Luffy, starts to say something about Crocodile, and Emily Rudd, the actress who plays Nami, immediately kind of shushes him, which is very strange unless it was a potential spoiler about the show or this theory. And because throughout the interview, it's not like they were very shy about other spoilers for the manga or even the anime. So it was specifically something about Crocodile concerning the live action show that the cast were not supposed to talk about. Now, that could be nothing, but it could also be certainly something. Now, there's an even further layer to this theory that I've always found ridiculous and just doesn't make any sense. And that is that while he was still a woman, that Crocodile is actually Luffy's mother. This is just ludicrous to me. I don't even know where this theory, or why this theory has gotten so much traction over the years. There's just no evidence to remotely even jump to this conclusion other than that Crocodile knew Ivankov during the time Luffy may have been born, and that he may have also met Dragon as well during that time. That's it. You have to literally take 3 steps to even get to the starting point. And there have been no other things to even remotely support this absurd theory. People have often pointed to the gender-bent doodles of Crocodile as a woman in the SBS sections, but that was clearly done for fun. And Oda has done this many times for many different characters and many different things. And this wasn't a situation like Mr. 7 where he doodles what Mr. 7 would have looked like. And in that case, he specifically states that this is what he would have looked like in the world. And so that was clearly something that he actually meant to be part of the world. He just never got around to drawing it. So yeah, I think that part of the theory is absurd and ridiculous. But definitely, I think there is something to the idea that Crocodile was a woman at some point. Anyways, moving on. In addition to Crocodile, Jinbei pleads to Luffy to let him help save Ace. And Luffy, of course, being the ever emotionally intelligent genius, takes a good hard look at Jinbei and deems it okay to release him and bring him along. And I can't tell you the gravity of this moment, especially when it happened at the time. This was just the most hype thing ever. Think about it for a second. Luffy now has 2 Shichibukai on his side. 2 Shichibukai. And if you throw in the fact that Hancock would basically die for Luffy at this point, he now has 3 Shichibukai as allies. I mean, let that sink in for a moment, and you realize the magnitude of what is about to go down, because Hancock is going to actually be at Marineford as well, and she has an obligation to fight with the Marines, but she is not going to oppose Luffy. And so yeah, on the battlefield, Luffy is going to have Crocodile, Jinbei, and Hancock, 3 of the 7 Shichibukai, all at his fingertips. It's insane. And that shot of Luffy flanked by the 2 former Shichibukai, Jinbei and Crocodile, along with one of his father's top commanders, is just freaking nuts. Like, I'm getting hyped right now just talking and remembering it. But at the time, the entire community, I remember, was going nuts. Like, that is some serious firepower. And you start to get the sense that there might be a chance for Luffy to pull this off with this kind of support. I mean, you still also have Boncré, and then, you have the 2 wild cards of Galdino and Buggy as well. You know that they're going to come back. And it's really exciting. And this moment really makes you appreciate one of the unsung ways One Piece is so great, is that it's an experience. And what I mean by that is that it's not just a fun story to watch or read, which it is, but the fun sort of participatory nature of watching and or reading One Piece, especially in real time as the episodes and chapters are coming out. Like, seeing these moments and then interacting with the community is always so damn fun. Seeing everyone react and discuss the different meanings, the theories, the predictions. It's awesome. Then, of course, there's that amazing sort of rewarding feeling of following such a series for moments precisely like this, where we get reintroduced to old forgotten characters or old forgotten storylines or old forgotten concepts in a huge, and not just for nostalgia beat, but for real story purposes. This is one of the reasons why I always get a little annoyed when people say, "Oh, One Piece is too long," and that's a knock against it. I think because it's so long, it creates moments like this that you just don't get in other stories. It's just, it certainly doesn't happen in movies. Maybe you could argue the MCU is kind of like that, where you have things that played out 10 years prior come back to fulfill their purposes or reintroduce characters that you long forgot. Maybe you could also argue current Star Wars, but they're not all that good at pulling that off. But beyond that, yeah, no other show is really going to give you that sort of sense of just to get that experience. Maybe Game of Thrones when it was at its height. But I've never really seriously watched or read Game of Thrones, so I can't really speak to that experience myself. But yeah, I mean, I think One Piece, that sort of participatory experience nature of this story is one thing that makes it so great. And this particular moment really exemplifies how awesome it is, especially now that we're closing in on well beyond 400 and close to 500 episodes and chapters, and the series having gone for close to 10 years at this point when this episode aired. Anyways, moving back to the story, we then are finally introduced to Shiryu, the notoriously cruel and brutal jail manager of Impel Down. And he is slimy and trying to use this sort of emergency to get the guards to release him. Without Magellan there, it seems like he can easily sort of manipulate the other jailers to help him. Unfortunately, we don't get to see what comes of this yet. Now, the next scene in Newcomer Land, as they prepare to escape, we get a scene that kind of addresses a manga question that many people had at the time, was how Crocodile got his clothes back after being in his prison garb. And so just the scene before, and it's implied here that we got, that he got them from Newcomer Land, and I think we all kind of knew that in the manga as well. But in that same scene that we get Ivankov injecting Bonkre with the tension hormone to recover him so we can, help. Also, that scene's pretty funny because he hilariously accidentally injects his nutsack, which, ouch. But we do get that scene where Crocodile is being fitted for shoes, and clearly he got his clothes from Newcomer Land. And so, yeah, now we're ready to experience an amazing widespread prison break as they plan to release as many prisoners on their way up to create even more confusion and chaos to up their chances of escape. And, oh man, I could not wait for what was about to come when this originally was released. This is just insanity waiting to happen. And when Crocodile starts doing his thing, I get chills. Just seeing this once mortal enemy of Luffy on their side, fighting side by side with Luffy, is just insane to me, and something I never thought I would see. And then throw in Jinbei, and this is the stuff fans dream of. And Jinbei, for his part, his first introduction in terms of how he is in combat, Jinbei is a freaking beast, as he seems to have an even more beastly form of Kurobi's fishman karate, where he basically just like warps people and he doesn't even need to touch them. And yeah, then the episode ends with a teased reunion from earlier as Crocodile goes back for his right-hand man, Mr. One, Daz Bonus. And I know I sound like a broken record at this point, but there's just no other way to describe it. Like, I just get chills like every other scene for the rest of this arc, or even this saga, to be quite honest. But unfortunately, with that, we leave this set of episodes on another crazy cliffhanger with another insane twist to come in the next set of episodes. That, I think, will generally turn people's minds upside down, because I certainly did not expect this to happen when it originally did. And yeah, I can't wait. Anyways, that'll bring this episode to a close. But if you did enjoy this, send me a like or comment. And if you want to join me on this journey of rewatching One Piece, please consider subscribing. Check out my Instagram and X account at SunnyGo Podcast if you want updates of when I post new episodes or to see pictures of my manga collection. And as always, I wanted to thank you for taking the time to listen to my podcast. No spoiler section today, so stay safe out there, and I hope to see you on the next episode. Bye!